This is for people who want to make a delicious meal without making a huge mess, because these are one-pot meals. Now the beauty of these meals is that they are incredibly easy to make. But the last one is not only the easiest, but in my opinion, it's also the most delicious. But first, Cajun sausage pasta. And you'll start by bringing a pot of water to a boil. And while we wait for that to boil, we're gonna go ahead and prep all of our vegetables and our meat. First up, we have a very oddly shaped, well not oddly shaped, just a weird topped bell pepper. I don't know if bell peppers have a season, but it certainly season like this one is out of season. But just because it's ugly doesn't mean it doesn't taste good. So we'll just start by cutting this into strips. Its odd shape has now resulted in odd slices, but that's okay. And then we'll just go ahead and move those strips around, and we'll cut those into a nice-ish dice. It doesn't have to be specific, just whatever size you want inside your pasta. That's all that matters. And they should all generally be the same size, roughly, so that way they cook evenly. Then we can just move those over to a bowl and move on to our onion. Oh, that could have been so bad. Not doing that again. Whew, man, would have been a very short video, or a very long one if I came back to it. I would come back to it if I cut my hand. Anyways, we'll just cut that in half, cut off the tip, and remove that outer layer's skin. Then we'll just very carefully cut around the radius. Is that the right word? That is the right word. I'm a teacher, I know these things. And then we'll rotate, and again, cut that into a similar sized dice as your bell peppers. We only do that just that way it cooks all roughly the same. And then again, we'll just move those over with our bell peppers. And then save this, because you're gonna need it for later. Saved. Now we can just break apart 6-ish cloves of garlic. It's not an exact science because garlic's all different shapes and sizes. And if you're a good person, then you probably like a lot of garlic. And if you're a bad person, it's not an exact science, but I feel like historically speaking, you know, like vampires and stuff. But anyways, once you have those cloves out, you're just gonna go ahead and smack them. And now we can very easily just peel off the husk. And then we'll just go ahead and roughly chop this with our knife, rocking over it until it's not tiny minced, but let me just show you. You know, like that size. There's now garlic just spread amongst my countertop. Ugh. Got it. And then we could just go ahead and move that over with our onions and pepper. And now that bowl is finished, but we still have a little bit of produce we need to cut up, just a little bit of parsley that we're gonna be sprinkling on at the end. So we're gonna keep it separate. For this kind of stuff especially, it really helps to have a very sharp knife so you don't end up bruising your parsley and ending up with a bunch of like really sad parsley, but you know, work with what you got. And then we'll just move that over to another little bowl. Now for our meat, we're gonna be using some andouille sausage, which technically speaking, you don't have to use andouille sausage. You can really just use whatever sausage you prefer or have on hand, but it'll taste a little bit different, but you know, still be delicious. This whole piece is about 0.75 pounds, or it says on the thing, it's like 13.5 ounces. You can use more, you can use less, but generally speaking, from a packaging standpoint, that's about the weight that they come in. So if you go more, then you'll have to get probably 2 packages, but if you do less, then you'll have some left over. And then I'm just cutting these on a slight bias, about a 1/4 inch thick. And then once you have all those sliced up, we're just gonna go ahead and move those to a separate bowl. And that is all your prep. Now by this point, your water should be boiling, but if not, just let it boil. And then we'll just add in a couple heavy pinches of salt, followed up by your pasta of choice. I'm using rotini, but really it's whatever you prefer. Technically speaking, there's a science to like what pasta shapes go with what types of sauces, but I don't know. I'm not a pasta scientist. So just choose whatever pasta you like. But then make sure to check your box to cook to al dente. And you wanna make sure that you keep your pasta moving because it helps avoid stickage and it helps to avoid bubble overs. That happens to me far too often and I absolutely hate it. It's the worst. And then once your pasta is nice and al dente, we're just gonna carefully remove it, leaving no man left behind, of course. We'll go ahead and save a little bit of that pasta water, just in case we need it. And then we'll just dump out all the water. If you lean over it while you pour it out, it's like a facial, but free. And then before we move on to the rest of our cook, we're just gonna drizzle on a little bit, and I mean a tiny bit of olive oil. This is just gonna help it prevent from sticking while we cook everything else. But if you add too much, it's gonna make it difficult for the sauce to stick to it, and that's just not gonna be fun. So just a wee drizzle. Now back in your pot on a medium-high heat, we're gonna go ahead and add in just a touch of olive oil, and then all of our sausage. Now there is some fat in our sausage, but we wanna make sure we've got a nice layer of fat at the bottom so that way none of it sticks and tears up. Then we'll just spread this all out, make sure that everything's got as much contact as possible, and let it sit there and get a nice little sear, and then we'll stir it up and do it some more. Ooh. And remember that these are already cooked, so really we're just getting some color on there, deepening the flavor, but cooking it through is not something we have to worry about. Today's drink of choice, fruit punch Capri Sun. Now, depending on the pot you're using and the amount of surface area it has, this may take a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. In my case, it took me about 10 to 12 minutes to get a very nice sear on most of my pieces. And at this point, we can go ahead and remove it. And just throw it back into the same bowl we put it in. We removed it from. Well, I guess we did put it in when we put it in initially, but you know what I'm saying. Now from here, we're gonna lower our heat down a little bit to about a medium. We'll add in roughly 3 tablespoons of butter, if I can get it out, followed by all the veg we chopped up. And then we just wanna keep this moving until the onions are nice and soft and our garlic is nice and fragrant. Now after about 5 minutes of just constant stirring, we're gonna add in a couple teaspoons of tomato paste. That's 1, 2, followed by another 3 tablespoons of butter, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's gonna taste delicious. And then we're gonna do about 3 tablespoons of your preferred Cajun seasoning blend. But if you don't have one, you can absolutely make it from scratch, and I will leave that down below for you. And now all we need to do is just keep that moving to melt the butter, and then cook it down for another 1 to 2 minutes. And now we're gonna add in about 2½ cups of heavy cream. That's 2, and it's about half. And then we'll just continue to stir this together until it starts to simmer and emulsify. And now that we've come up to a very light simmer, we can go ahead and add in our cheese. Roughly 1.5 cups of preferably freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano. But if you do need to use the pre-grated stuff, then make sure you're getting the stuff that's in like the smaller container and not the sawdust stuff you put on pizza. That's not good for this. And also bear in mind that this part really isn't an exact science. It's really more of a personal preference. You like it a little more cheesy, you like it a little thicker, add more cheese. You like it a little thinner, a little less cheesy, more creamy, add less cheese. Also, I just want you guys to know that no more cheese tomahawk because bullies on the internet. But once you've added all of your cheese, you're just gonna want to continue to stir and let it thicken up for 3 to 5 minutes. Now at this point, your sauce should have thickened up a little bit, but we're gonna finish thickening it up with a little bit of pasta water to also help to emulsify that butter, cheese, and cream even better. And you wanna make sure you add just a little bit at a time, because if you add too much, you're gonna do the opposite and you're gonna end up thinning out your sauce, and you probably don't want that. So just take your time, go little by little. But once you're happy with it, we're gonna go ahead and taste it and adjust our salt and pepper. Now we used a pre-made spice blend before, which has salt and pepper in it. Still needs a little bit more, but that's going to depend on if you used a pre-made spice blend, if you made your spice blend from scratch, like I have down below. That's why it's really important for you to just taste and adjust as you need. And then now from here, we can go ahead and gently add in our pasta, making sure to fold that all in very nicely. So for some reason, my camera decided to stop recording, but we added in our sausage. Now we'll just grate on a little Parmigiano Reggiano on top and finish it off with some of our chopped parsley. And before we get into the next recipe, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about the sponsor of today's video. If you're anything like me, then you prioritize your comfort. And that's why I'm proud to introduce today's sponsor, Bombas. Now, for those of you who don't know, Bombas is the essential apparel company that spent over 2 years doing research and development to test durability and comfort. I'd be willing to bet that they've spent more time thinking about your own comfort than you have. So it's really no surprise that they are the most comfortable socks I've ever put on my feet. They produce high quality premium basics for all of your needs. Whether you are hiking in the mountains or just filming a cooking video, you gotta stay comfortable. Plus, Bombas is committed to more than just comfort, they're committing to helping those in need. Bombas produces the number 1, 2, and 3 most requested items in homeless shelters. And to date, they've donated over 150 million items, all thanks to people like you. Because with Bombas, when you buy one, they donate one. It is a product that I truly love and a program that I can get behind. They make the perfect gift for your friend, your spouse, your parents, your kids, or you can just be like me and gift them to yourself. So with international shipping and a 100% happiness guarantee, head over to bombas.com/Ian or use code Ian20 for 20% off your first order. And thank you again to Bombas for sponsoring today's video. And now for our enchilada skillet, we're gonna start by cutting up another weirdly shapen red bell pepper. Again, it doesn't have to be weirdly shapen, but it certainly helps. And then very similar to what we did before, we're just gonna go ahead and cut this into strips and then rotate it and give it a nice dice. And we'll just go ahead and put that into the same bowl we had our other veggies in, because then it's one less bowl for me to wash. And we'll do the same to a green bell pepper. Again, the only important part here is that they're all roughly the same size, so it all cooks down in the same amount of time. Sorry I didn't finish that thought. And now remember that onion. That one, grab it. Told you it was gonna come back into play. And just like before, we're gonna go ahead and slice all around the radius, I said with confidence, and then roughly chop it into a dice. And then we're just going to roughly smash and then chop some garlic. These are 2 very large cloves, but if you had regular sized cloves, you'd get away with 4, but mine were exceptionally large. And then we can just move that all over with the rest of our veg. And finally our jalapeno, which you don't need, but in my case, I'm going to put it in there. But if you don't like spicy, by all means, leave it out. But I'm just going to slice it in half. I'm gonna go scoop out the seeds. And I'm just gonna slice this into nice thin matchsticks, and then just finally dice that up as well. And now we can move on to our canned ingredients. We have black beans, sweet corn, and roasted chilies. For something like this recipe, there really isn't a need to make your own beans from scratch or grill your own corn and then husk and decob it, or to roast your own chilies. Like, that doesn't make any sense. The whole point of this is to be easy and breezy. So easy and breezy, we're making it. So all you're gonna wanna do is just crack these open. We're gonna pour out the liquid because that's a lot of bean juice. Got on my finger. Then into a separate bowl, our beans, followed by our corn and our fire roasted chilies. But these ones you don't have to drain. And then next up we have our cheese, which is not optional, but the grating aspect of it is. Because if you decide to get some pre-grated cheese, then you don't have to do this part, but I almost always recommend getting a block of cheese and just grating it yourself. 8 ounces of pepper jack cheese, but you could also use Monterey Jack. Okay, now here's where there's a small problem. I bought this cheese with the intent to grate it with my box grater. I don't know where the box grater is, so I have to do it on this one, which is fine. It's just, it's gonna be so much more work. Anyways, you would probably want to use a box grater and not this type of hand microplane grater, because the box grater is just going to be a lot more effective and efficient, but that's okay. We're chugging along. Oh, this is going so slow. Well, it doesn't matter now because we finished grating all of our cheese, which means we can move on to our tortillas. Now, for something like this, in a skillet style enchilada dip situation, I'm gonna recommend you get the smallest tortillas you can find because we're gonna cut them up. And if you can get them in smaller pieces, the better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why 7, you might ask? Well, let me tell you, because 7's one of my favorite numbers. And it also feels like a good amount. It's not too much where it's overcrowding, and it's not too little where you're missing out on it. So all we need to do is just go ahead and cut this in half, rotate, cut it in half again, rotate, cut it in half again, and then one final time we're gonna rotate and cut it in half. It should now be cut into 8 pieces. Each tortilla is cut into 8 pieces. What are numbers? What are they? Realistically speaking, what are they? I'm just gonna put this on top of the cheese. Slowly but surely, I'm becoming a better YouTuber. Not great yet, but I'll get there. Now, for our last bit of prep, we have 2 very large chicken breasts. They don't have to be this large, but for some reason they are. And we'll just start by giving them a nice rub down in a thin layer of olive oil. This is just gonna work as our binder to help our seasoning stick. Now to season our chicken, we're gonna go with about 4 tablespoons of garlic powder. Oh, that poured out very fast. Don't worry, we're going to be flipping it around anyways. Okay. Pause. Do you see these? You see these little kernels of garlic powder? Do you see them? This is an important lesson. That happens because I shake my garlic powder container over something hot with steam. When you shake it over that, like when you're seasoning a soup or something like that, that steam is going to get trapped inside your bottle. It's going to cause moisture, and that moisture is going to turn into these little garlic nuggets. It's not good. It can cause your stuff to go bad faster, and it makes portioning very difficult. Just don't pour anything straight into anything hot. Portion it out first and then add it in. Now we're going with about 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, a very nice pinch of salt, and of course some fresh cracked black pepper. And then now we're just going to flip our chicken around in this until it's all nice and evenly coated. Alternatively, you could also just use a pre-made taco seasoning blend. That's totally fine, whatever makes this process easier for you. And then once you can no longer see any chicken, you're good to go. Now to cook all this, we're gonna be using a 3.5 quart cast iron enamel coated skillet because it's going to hold the heat really well and it looks pretty in pictures. That's why. We're gonna preheat this to medium heat. The first thing we're gonna be cooking is our chicken, and because it's so thick, I'm gonna go a little bit lower because it's gonna take a little bit longer to cook, and I don't wanna burn it on the bottom of our pan, because then you have to either wash it or use a secondary pan, and then it's no longer a one pot meal. You know what I mean? And once this is nicely preheated, we're just gonna go ahead and add in a little bit of olive oil, and then we're going to lay down our chicken. Now it is faint, but it is sizzling a little bit, not as much as it normally would be, but we wanna cook this slow and slow, so that way we retain the juices because we want this to be very juicy and we don't burn anything. So this is gonna be a slow process. We're gonna take our time, cook, flip, cook, flip, cook, flip, cook, flip. So we do it right. And after about 2 minutes on that first side, we're gonna flip. We'll let it cook another 2 minutes on the second side, and we're basically just going to continue to repeat this process over and over until our chicken is fully cooked through. Now my chicken's been cooking for about 20 minutes and it is all the way cooked through, so I'm just gonna go ahead and remove it. And I'd also like to say that it may not take you as long because my chicken breasts were just really thick. If yours are also thick, you can cut them in half and you can sear them off individually. That'll make the process go a lot quicker. These, I just left them thick and therefore I paid the price for it, so it is what it is. But while this is still hot, we're just gonna go ahead and start shredding it up so we can throw it back in when we need it. None of the cameras are pointing to this. I'll show you when I'm done. Just like that. And I also want to mention that you can just use a rotisserie chicken or even canned chicken, like canned cooked chicken. If it puts food on your table and it eases your day and it tastes good, like that's fine. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Like it's it's totally fine. But now into our skillet, we're gonna go in with a little bit of olive oil just to help lube up the surface. And then we'll add in all that chopped veg. And you just wanna make sure you keep this moving because there's garlic in there and you don't want any of that to burn. And you do want it to soften up just a little bit. And after about 2 to 3 minutes, or once your onions start to become translucent, we're gonna add in a 1/4 cup of chili powder, a tablespoon of garlic powder, a tablespoon of dried oregano, and 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. You see that steam? That's what causes the problem. Don't let it be a problem. And then of course we're gonna add a nice pinch of salt, fresh cracked black pepper, and about a teaspoon of tomato paste. And then we'll just stir that all together and cook down that tomato paste as well as all those spices. Then after about another 2 minutes, 1 cup of chicken stock and 1 cup of heavy cream. And then all the stuff that we put in a can, we're now gonna put into the pan. Sick. And now all we need to do is just stir this all together and bring it up. Oh, dude, what am I thinking? They're chicken, duh. Much better. And now we can just stir this all together and bring it up to a nice little simmer, just to thicken up. Now, alternatively, instead of adding the chicken stock and the obscene amount of chili powder and some of the other spices, you could just use an enchilada sauce, but in this case, we had a little more control. We made our own enchilada sauce, but feel free to remove the chicken stock and the boatload of spices we tossed in after the chicken stock, before the chicken stock, and just do an enchilada sauce. And now after simmering for about 7 to 8 minutes, we're just gonna go ahead and turn our heat down a little bit, slow that simmer down. Now we're going to sprinkle in all of our tortilla pieces, as well as about half of our cheese. And just make sure you're careful when you're folding it all in together because by now, pot's probably pretty full, so you don't wanna spill anything. And then once that's all nicely incorporated, you can turn your heat off and just sprinkle on the rest of your cheese. Go ahead and place our lid on top, and just for about a minute to help that cheese melt. And then all you have to do is just plate it with a few garnishes. And now for our final dish, which, as I said before, is not only the easiest, but also the most delicious, a dumpling bake. Ba ba ba. Yeah, I couldn't find a song for this. And not only do you only need 1 pot for this entire thing, you really only need 1 vessel. It's a baking dish. But you could also just use a pot, or a large, really shouldn't use a pot, don't use a pot. A large pan, one pan. Now this whole thing starts off with a 400 milliliter can, or a 13.5 ounce can of coconut milk. Not coconut cream, because they're different. One is thicker and one is not as thick. And if your coconut milk happens to also be broken up into a solid and a liquid, as mine is, all you need to do is just break up the top, mix that all in, and it'll sort itself out. It does not mean that your coconut milk has gone bad. It just means that the milk solids in the coconut milk have separated. That's a-okay. We're gonna whisk it together anyways. Then you're gonna need about a 1/4 cup of red curry paste. I am in a sweet, sweet position where the red curry paste I got is in the exact perfect amount that I need. Bada bing, yeah, that's a 1/4 cup. It's not, but I'm gonna pretend it is. Then we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of creamy peanut butter. This is not the time to use chunky. Chunky is a no-go here. Oh, freaking love peanut butter. Then we're going in with about 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Alternatively, you could use honey, but I think brown sugar is better because it's just better than honey, in my personal opinion. Then 2 tablespoons of Chinese light soy sauce, a tablespoon of rice vinegar, and don't judge me because I have not refilled my sesame oil bottle, but we're gonna go with 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. Then we'll just grate in 4 cloves of garlic, and then finally, some ginger, about a 1-inch knob worth. And then now using a whisk, we can just carefully whisk this all together until everything is nice and combined. Did I spill? I spilled already. Okay, be more careful than me. Alternatively, you could also do this in a blender and then pour it into your pan, but then it's not a 1-pan meal. While the other meals, technically speaking, I was also using bowls, but you don't have to use bowls. I'm using bowls because I'm filming a cooking video, and so I need to move things around. So I would like to just clarify, because last time I got some flack for it, that those are also 1 pot, because you don't need to use the bowls that I used. But some people were like, no, you're not using just 1, you're also using bowls. And I was like, you're not wrong, but like, for understanding's sake, I just wanted to let you guys know. And now once that is all nice and smooth and evenly mixed, we're just gonna go ahead and chop off the butts of some baby bok choy, and then we're gonna slice those in half. And then we'll just lay them down nice and pretty like all around. I should also mention that your bok choy should be washed if you do so choose. If you decide not to, that's up to you. But I would highly, highly, highly recommend against just raw dogging the dirty veggies. And now with that, I've got about 5 pieces of bok choy sitting in my baking dish. Now we can move on to our dumplings, which I like using these because they are a thinner wrapper, so they're going to cook a lot quicker, but also up to you. You really just want to make sure you place them in there with enough space between them so that way they're not just sitting on top of each other. These are also nice because they're cute and adorable sized. And we all know cute and adorable sized food just inherently tastes better. It's a scientific fact. And in my case, because the dumpling size I used, I put in about 20 of them. That way a family of 4 could eat 5 each, but that can change depending on how many dumplings you actually put into your dish. 100% feel free to go with more, but this is a nice, good ratio. And now at this point, we're gonna take out some aluminum foil and just cover up our dish. And now this will go into our oven at 375 degrees for between 20 to 25 minutes. Yours may be a little bit longer if you're using bigger dumplings, but 20 to 25 minutes I found is what works really well for me. And then while that bakes, we can do 2 things. The first is go ahead and just slice up some of our green onion to garnish on top. And the second is thank you. I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate you. It means so much to me that you guys watch these videos, so thank you. And after about 27 minutes, sorry, I got distracted. Ooh. That's steamy, that's good. Go ahead and give this a little swirl and twirl. We can very carefully move some of this over to a plate. Oh, that made a mess. Then we can just drizzle on a little bit of chili oil, just a sprinkle of sesame seeds, a little bit of our green onions, and a few leaves of cilantro. And there we have our dumpling bake. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I really hope that you learned something. Here's a photo of me and my dad at a 5K, and I'll see you next week.